Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the books that I read in April and May. I actually only read 10 books in April and May combined. Oh, and I'm also halfway through reading another book. So I've read 10 and a half books in April and May combined. And then there's also a book that I tried to read, but I sort of softly DNF'd it. I haven't been reading as many books as usual. I feel like last year I was reading 8 books a month, sometimes 7 books, but usually 8 books a month. But at the minute, I'm reading more like 5, 6 books a month, to be quite honest. To a lot of people, reading 5 books a month is like crazy. They're like, you are reading so much. But for me, I'm like, what? I'm barely reading anything. So it's just funny when you're in the booktube, booktok world, like how you sort of view reading and how many books a month is like normal / not normal. Anyways, let's get into this wrap up. So starting very strong, we have Love and Virtue by Diana Reid. This was a 5-star book for me. I adored this book. I thought the writing was phenomenal. This had some of my favorite writing I've read all year. And it was a story that completely took me by surprise. I didn't expect the writing to be so fantastic. I also picked up this book when I was in Australia last year. I'd never heard of it. I'd never seen it before. I just saw that it won many prizes, and it's also written by an Australian author. So I was like, look, I'm in Australia. I should get a book by an Australian author that's also set in Australia. You know? Oh my goodness. What a book. The writing. The way that Diana Reid was able to depict human emotions, she was also just able to depict the human experience in the way unsaid things happen. Like, it's so hard to explain, but the way she would write about like certain ways that people look at you or certain thoughts that you may have when things happen, just such subtle things that I feel like so many people will relate to. It's very much something about literary fiction. I feel like I'm rambling, but stay with me here. At the heart of this genre is really exploring humanness and what it means to be human and thoughts that humans have, and really psychoanalyzing the human experience. So it's almost like a psychology book, you could say. Some of them just really stick with me, and I recall first reading a literary fiction and being mind blown at the experiences that the author was writing about, being like, oh my god, I felt like this too. It was like one of those things that you assume only you have felt before or experienced before, and because it really delves into like your innermost thoughts sometimes, and thoughts that you like maybe wouldn't share with other people because you're like, that's kind of weird. That's sort of what literary fiction does, and this one does it best, in my opinion. This is essentially a coming of age novel, but it's really so much more than that. It talks about topics of consent, of power, of different classes, especially in Australia. And I live in New Zealand, so Australia is very nearby. And a lot of the things that happen in here like are a part of like the Australian experience. To be honest, it's probably a part of any sort of Western country experience. But when I was reading it, I was like, oh my god, I've had so many similar experiences and so many similar sort of friend groups and conversations that I've had with friends, especially at that age. So in this book, our female protagonist is 19, and this story just took me back to like early adulthood days. Like, I flew right back. This book also really talks about virtues. You can probably tell by the title. There were so many interesting discussions happening within this book. Our main female character, she takes like a virtues class, like a psychology virtues class. So within that class, there's really interesting discussions. I also don't know if you can see, I have tabbed this book. I thought the writing was truly phenomenal. I think this book is so underrated. If you love literary fiction and like that's a genre that you do really enjoy, I highly recommend picking this book up. Even if you don't like that genre, I still would recommend this book. I just know that a lot of people who don't like lit fic, when they read literary fictions, they're sort of like, where is the plot? This is so boring, this is so slow. And that's because they're not meant to be super plot heavy. They are character-based books, character study books, and I personally really enjoy that. I'll give you a little bit about the plot. It follows our main character, what the hell's her name? Michaela. Michaela comes from like a low class, sort of working class family. To be honest, I would say she's middle class, and she goes to this very prestigious university on a scholarship. Now, everyone else at this university comes from wealth. They come from very affluent families, and Michaela gets very drawn to her roommate, Eva. Eva or Eve? Eve. Eve is from a very wealthy family. She's a very, very privileged person. Eve is one of those people who she does things and kind of gets away with things that I think only someone from privilege can get away with. Eve and Michaela are actually next door to each other, so they're in dorms and they're right next door to each other, and they do form a friendship. It's one of those friendships that you usually have when you're younger. I was gonna say just between girls, but no, that's not true. There's definitely so many young boys that also have those friendships, especially when you're younger, where it's almost like slightly competitive between the two of you. Like, it's very much unsaid, but you do feel this sort of tension or like rivalry for some reason. This book also does deal with consent. What does it mean to actually consent? It deals, like I said, with class, with friendships. It's a coming of age novel, like I said, so it's her sort of becoming an adult and just dealing with a lot of emotions and thoughts inside of her head. It's just a fantastic book. I highly recommend it, and I absolutely loved it. Oh my god, I feel like I've been talking for so long. I'm gonna try to do the rest of these not as long, because I obviously really love that book and clearly I had a lot to say. So then we will move on to A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. This is the first book in the Sacred Stones trilogy. This is a fantasy romance. In my opinion, this is very much like copy and paste other fantasy romances. I didn't think it offered anything new and exciting to the fantasy romance realm. But having said that, I will also say that the fantasy romance realm has really been overdone. So it's very, very, very difficult for authors to have a different idea or a new perspective or a fresh take on it, because it's almost like everything has been done. So I am not at all dissing this book or anything like that, because I fully understand how difficult it must be for authors to have something new to add to this, because like I said, it's already been done. This was definitely a very enjoyable fantasy romance. It was super fast paced. It got into it straight away. It was a book that I actually enjoyed a lot more of the beginning than in the end. It's your classic fantasy romance sort of plot. The main girl, her brother, what happens? Her brother gets taken away by this other kingdom, and in order to save him, she has to go in his place. Am I making this up? So Arwen, she has to be the brave one and save her brother's life. So now she gets taken as prisoner by the Onyx Kingdom, which is the most powerful kingdom in the world. When she gets there, she obviously forms a relationship with the enemy, who is the king. And you know, you probably guessed it, this is just what's gonna happen. If you've read enough fantasy romance, you can kind of get where the story is gonna go. So it didn't really offer anything exciting and fresh for me, but I did still enjoy it. And the only thing is, I just didn't like the actual romance in this book. I didn't find it believable, and I didn't think there was any chemistry at all. So this was a 3.5 star for me. It was a good time. Is it good enough to continue the series? Not for me, unfortunately. And I'd still definitely recommend it, I think, especially if you are newer to fantasy romance. Oh my god, it just got so sunny, what the hell? Right, and then we're gonna get into, my babies. We have This Woven Kingdom and These Infinite Threads by Tahira Mafi. This is the same author who wrote the Shadow Me series. And guys, these books have resurrected me. Like, the way, like when I read them, the way that I was just like, when I read these, because you know how I was just talking about how fantasy romance felt very like same for me? These books really took me out of that kind of slump. Not that I was in a romantasy slump, but I kind of felt like I was falling into one, because I'd read quite a lot back to back, more sort of adult fantasy romance, and they were just feeling like same old. Now, I do think a YA romantasy can actually be the trick if you're feeling like that. Can you guys still see me? It is so sunny. I really hope you can still see me. Let's talk about the series. This is a YA fantasy romance, and this book has Persian, Middle Eastern, Islamic mythology. The main character, I love her so much. I think she's one of my favorite female main characters. She is so graceful and so elegant, but also still like such a badass in her own way. I love her. I love her so much. I loved the first book, and I know a lot of people complain that this book is way too slow for them. So don't be put off if you see those reviews online, because just know that I loved it so much. It didn't feel slow to me. It was so beautiful. It really pulls you into the story. The setting is absolutely gorgeous. The tension in this book sort of gave me like Kate and Anthony, Bridgerton vibes, like the tension between the two main characters. I absolutely loved this book. Loved this book so much that I immediately had to jump into the second book. And if you thought that I loved this book, wait till you hear about how I felt towards this book. This This book had me blushing, giggling, and kicking my feet. So many things happened in this book that I did not see coming at all. Not a single part of me saw anything coming. I'm not going to tell you any tropes about this book because I really don't want you to be spoiled for it. I've seen some people online talk about the tropes in this book, but luckily I'd seen it after I'd already read it, and I'm really happy I did, because I think if I saw that before reading this book wouldn't have hit as hard, in my opinion. So it's so good, you guys. Oh my god, like I'm actually obsessed with it. I am deeply obsessed with this series. I have also started, you know how I was telling you that I'm currently halfway through a book? I'm also halfway through All This Twisted Glory, which is the 3rd book. I'm sort of taking my time with this one because once I finish this one, I don't have any more books of this series, and she's not going to release the 4th book until later on in the year. It's going to be a 5-book series, so I just want to sort of take my time with this one, you know? Both of these are obviously a 5-star. This is a 6-star book. I highly recommend this series, I really do. Don't let anyone scare you off from these books because you think that they're going to be slow. If you and I have similar book taste, which I'm assuming by watching me we probably do, I think you would really like these. But if you don't end up liking them, that's okay. I will take no offense, I understand. But just know that for me, perfection. Perfection. Okay, and then I read a book that was on my radar for such a long time, maybe over a year, which I think that's quite a long time. We have The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. This book was actually kindly sent to me by one of my subscribers, Jess. She is so gorgeous, like honestly one of the prettiest girls I've ever seen in my life, and she sent me this book because she thinks that I would like this book, and she was absolutely correct. This had all of the sort of aspects of a book that I really enjoy. It was so atmospheric, and it was also like a historical fiction, and it had time travel in it. I am a sucker for a time travel story. I'll tell you a little bit about this book without saying too much because I think I said in one of my vlogs, there's so much information on the back. I don't think you should read that. I'm gonna be honest. I think you should go into this book pretty blind, which is what I did, and it made the story a lot more interesting because I was like, what the hell? And even though it was actually on the back, it was just a lot more interesting to go into it. All I will say is that June's family has had this centuries-old curse where the women reach a certain age and they sort of start getting a little bit crazy, you could say. They're not actually going crazy. They're sort of more living in between different times, if you know what I mean. Guys, please tell me you can see me. It's so sunny. I can't even see myself. Like, what? I thought I would just move here. Hopefully that's better. This book is also one of those books that blends a lot of genres. There's a huge mystery in this book. A big part of this book is a mystery. Now, the only thing that didn't make this book a super high rated book for me, I think I gave it a 3.75 star, is that I wasn't super interested in the mystery of this book. But I really liked the writing, I liked the storytelling, and I liked how immersive this book was. But yeah, the actual mystery of this book, like I wasn't too bothered about, which is why it's not very highly rated for me. 3.75 is still a very good rating, but I think if I was a little bit more interested in the plot, it definitely would have been like a 4.25 or something. But nonetheless, I definitely recommend this book, especially when it's autumn/fall. Okay, and then I read a book that's been on my TBR for a year and a half. And guys, I'm so proud of myself for reading this book. You have no idea. And that book is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I don't know why, like for some reason I just didn't want to read this book. Like I wanted to read it because it's a very highly acclaimed book and I like to read books like that to see if I agree. And that's why I wanted to read it so badly. But I also was like, am I gonna like this book? And luckily I did. This is one of those books that everyone was like, you're gonna either love it or hate it. And I wouldn't say that I loved it, like loved it, but I definitely didn't hate it. I really liked it. So I think I gave this book a 3.75 to a 4 star. This is also, what is this book? I would say it's a general fiction / literary fiction. It definitely, a lot of the writing reads like a literary fiction in my opinion, and it follows these two characters, Sam and Sadie, and it follows them for about 30 years if I'm not mistaken. They meet when they're young at a hospital, and this is not a romance book, by the way. Like there is obviously romance in this book, but this is a story on friendship really, and it's also a story about love, but not like romantic love. Like there is romantic love in this, but it's more just love, platonic love, romantic love, the love you can have for someone else, even if it doesn't mean that it's romantic. You might just love them as a human being. You know what I mean? These two characters, they bond over their love for gaming. And when they get a bit older, they actually design a game together. So a lot of this book does talk about gaming and different games and the game that they make. And I don't game, but I still really enjoyed the gaming aspects of this book. I thought it was so interesting. And I think if you are someone that does game, you would really appreciate that part of the book. Because even someone like me, I was eating it up. It definitely had very beautiful writing, and I liked the way that the characters would think about each other, if that makes sense. And yeah, the only reason it's not more than a 3.75 to a 4-star was I just didn't feel overly connected to the characters. And had I felt more connected to them, it definitely would have been like a 4.5 or something. But yeah, I would still really recommend this book, and I understand why it won all the awards that it did. Alright guys, and then this next book, I'm almost scared to actually talk about it. I really am quite afraid to talk about it. And I was going to feature it in a reading vlog because a lot of people were asking me to do so. But when I read this book, it was in the middle of me filming a bunch of different videos, and I was like, and it wasn't going with any of the videos I was filming. So I was like, I don't want to start another video that's a bit overwhelming for me. And I really wanted to read it before I saw any spoilers. So this book is Fearless by Lauren Roberts. This is the third and final book in the Powerless trilogy. And unfortunately, you guys, I found this book to be disappointing. It was fun. I had a lot of fun in a lot of parts of this book. There were so many fun scenes, and it was very reminiscent of all the parts that I loved in Powerless. I felt very much taken back. It was also, like, the majority of this book was based at the castle. I love a book that's set in a castle. Like, it's always going to do it for me. Don't hate me, you guys. Don't hate me. Especially all the Kai lovers. I found this book to be so repetitive. Like, the second book was already incredibly repetitive. Actually, even the first book with all the banter between Peyton and Kai, by the end of it I was like, oh my god, I get it. Like, okay, I get it. Then in the second book, absolutely nothing happens. Like, nothing happens in the second book. You honestly don't even have to read it, to be quite honest with you. Maybe read the last 10 pages and then you'll figure out what you need to figure out for this book. The second book, so repetitive. I think I gave it like a 2.75 or a 3-star. I think, like, it was And then in this book, the same things kept happening again. Like, it was so repetitive. The way that Kai talks about Peyton, like, I hated being in his point of view. I absolutely hated it. And I know a lot of people love Kai. They are like, oh my god, he says such romantic things about Peyton. I was like, if I have to hear about him drowning in her ocean eyes yet again, I am going to drown myself. Like, I am going to lose my mind. It was just like never ending. Would I still recommend this series? I would. If you are like a romance reader and you mostly read romance, you've maybe dabbled in fantasy romance, but what you love most about books is the romance and the yearning and yeah, just the romance. Then I think you would love this series, because this series is much more of a romance than it is fantasy, in my opinion. Like, the story really focuses on the romantic feelings between the characters, and I'm happy for them. I really am. I just need more. I just was like, I also hate what happened towards one of my favorite characters in this book, which is probably why I have beef with it. And I really hated how the story went and what happened. I thought it was a bit of a cop-out, if you will. I just felt like the author didn't know what to do in a certain situation, so she was like, oh, I'll just do this. I'm so sorry if you love this book. Like I said, I enjoyed a lot of parts of this book, so I'm going to give it a 3-star. It was just such a disappointment because I really thought this was going to be like a fantastic book. I was like, oh my god, the second book was really bad, but that's okay because it's probably, you know, setting up the third book. The third book is going to be epic. Then I read Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. If you don't know, this follows Haymitch. Now, you meet Haymitch in The Hunger Games. You know all about him. So this is actually a prequel to those stories. This is when Haymitch was young and when he was in the Hunger Games. I love Haymitch. I've always been Haymitch's biggest stan. I've loved that character. Like, I just love him, and I've always felt for him. And I was like, I need to know his backstory. So the fact that we got it was just, it was such a blessing. I was so happy. I loved this book. It was so nostalgic to be back in the Hunger Games. Mind you, it did really break my heart at a lot of points. And I gave it a 4.5. I was expecting it to be a 5-star just because of how much I love Haymitch and the Hunger Games. But it didn't really give me that 5-star feeling, unfortunately, but it was still so fantastic. And if you are yet to read this, or if you're yet to read The Hunger Games, they're so much better than the movies. Like, the movies are great, don't get me wrong, but the books are so good. So definitely read those, and then also read this book. I think I mentioned in one of my videos that if I read this book, but it didn't have anything to do with the Hunger Games, and you changed the name of the book, you changed the author, you changed all the characters' names, and you just gave me this book as if it was a different story, nothing to do with the Hunger Games, would I rate it as high as I did? Potentially not, to be quite honest. The reason that I was very much engrossed in this book and really loving it was because of the nostalgia, because I loved the Hunger Games when I was younger. But yeah, fantastic book, so nostalgic, and I had a really good time reading it. Third location change of the video. Let's keep rolling. It's just so bright. I can't do anything about it. Anyways, then I read Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stephen. This was unfortunately another disappointment for me. I read this in a reading books I predict will be 5 stars video because I really did believe, I wholeheartedly believed that this was going to be a 5-star read. The amount of people I've seen online sobbing their eyes out reading this book, I was like, I need to read this. I love books that make me cry. And also, one of my favorite authors, V.E. Schwab, wrote Impossible to Put Down. This book was very much compared to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure. And I love that book. You guys know I love that book. It's beautiful. And I was expecting this book to be a lot more beautiful than it was. Don't get me wrong, it was still a very beautiful concept, and it definitely had some beautiful writing in it. It's essentially about these two people who have loved each other for centuries. A love like no other. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, oh my god, like, tell me about this love, girl. And essentially, this main character, every 18 years, she gets stabbed and killed by this main guy. And every 18 years, she wakes up in a different body, in a different country, different life, different everything, different family. She goes about her normal life, and then just before she's about to turn 18, she gets killed. And she's trying to fix this curse because it's been going on for centuries. She's like, I'm gonna find this person who keeps killing me. And the person who keeps killing her is the person that she's been in love with, and they've been in love with her for centuries. And you do find out why this is happening. I was just thinking it was going to be a lot more profound and deep, and I don't know, maybe that's my own expectations. They were too high. The book was a lot of telling about how much these characters love each other, and the love they have has never been seen before. It's unlike anything else, etc., etc. I was like, where is this love? I don't see it. I don't feel it. You're just telling me about it. So yeah, it's definitely one of those cases where there's a lot of telling, not a lot of showing, which isn't my favorite thing. But I'd still recommend this book, I think, because a lot of people seem to really love it. Although I will say the Goodreads rating was actually really bad for this book. I didn't expect that. So I'm happy to know that I'm not alone about these feelings. I don't normally check Goodreads ratings, but I was like, am I the only person who didn't love this book? And luckily, I was not. And then I read Gleam by Raven Kennedy. I do have to wrap this video up very shortly because I have to go. But this was the 3rd book in the Plated Prisoner series. And I think this was actually my favorite one in the series so far. I'm going to give this one a 4 to a 4.25 star rating. I think most of that actually is because of the end. The last like 40 pages or so, I was like, and it really topped the book off for me. It was going to be like a 4-star, but I think the ending bumped it up to a 4.25. This is a dark fantasy romance series, and there's a lot of dark sort of topics that happen in this book. I felt like the first book was sort of the darkest. Essentially, the main character, she's been held hostage by King Midas. You know the story of King Midas, everything he touches turns to gold? That's kind of like it's like the inspiration for the series, essentially. The first book was enjoyable. I liked it, got into it straight away. The second book was a bit of a snooze fest for me. It just dragged and dragged without really any plot developing. This book, the plot, there is plot in this. There's definitely a plot. The plot does move very slowly. This is like a 700-page book, almost 700 pages. I listened to a lot of this book like in audio format just because I was quite busy with something, so I was like, let me put on the audio, and I was having a good time listening to it. It was really nice to see Oren's character have a lot of development. I was like, yes, finally we're getting some development here. Sometimes she would disappoint me and I was like, girl, no. But for the most of it, I really enjoyed it. I don't love the like male love interest in this book, unfortunately. I do like him. I think he's cool. I just don't like really connect to him a lot. But I know a lot of people love this series. Like, it is their all-time favorite trilogy. No, it's not a trilogy. It's their all-time favorite series. So I would definitely recommend this book, especially if you like maybe darker fantasy romance, but just know that like the plot moves very slowly. And had the plot just moved a little bit faster, I actually think if this book was only this long instead of this long, and we cut off all the unnecessary bits, it could have been better. It could have been like a 4.5 star. But yeah, just a lot of unnecessary parts or a very choppy pace. Like, the pacing of this book is all over the place. I have heard that the 4th and 5th book in the series, which I sort of like, I think it's a bit different to these. Like, it's like interconnected. I've got no idea. I've heard that they're really bad. So I might finish off the series with this book. Let me know if you think otherwise. But yeah, it was a good time, and yeah, 4.25 star. Just before I go, I thought I would show you the book that I softly DNF'd. I only read 60 pages of it. This is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I have not given up on this book. I just think I wasn't in the mood to read this book. So I will put this back on my TBR and I will read it again sometime this year. But yes, that wraps up my wrap up for April and May. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!